Welcome to the Boomer's Guide to a Vibrant Life with Vickie Washburn. Vickie and her guests will share their journey of the golden years and how they're creating a vibrant life. Topics will include family, fun, life, love, travel, and everything Boomer. You too can have the best of your vibrant life now. We are broadcasting from Global Voice Radio every week, and now here's your host, Vickie Washburn.
Hello, this is Vickie Washburn with the Boomer's Guide to a Vibrant Life. I hope you all are about ready for Christmas and New Year's and the holiday season that is upon us. And as we come to the end of the year, I just wanted to share with you today some kind of random thoughts, but hopefully they'll end up in a congruent place, something I've been pondering and, with the loss of my mother recently and still walking through this time of grief that I've been dealing with and trying to maintain my work schedule and all the commitments that I have pondered what I want this next year to look like. Over the last 3 years, I've been doing a lot of focusing on self-growth and trying to figure out what it is I want for my life. Like many of you, this transition of going from being married to single and approaching this time that is supposed to be a time of retirement alone has caused me to pause and to think about what it is that I want. Last week we talked about midlife crisis. Well, this has been my midlife crisis. I have come to a place I never expected to be. I certainly didn't expect to be here at this time in my life. And yet, I have great pride in the fact that I have been able to accomplish many things in the last few years since becoming single. As I said, I've spent a lot of time on self-growth. In fact, it's probably the only thing that I really can say I have focused on. I have worked, and of course, when you're working, you have to focus on work. But work no longer feeds my soul like it used to. And I'm sure some of you have reached that point in your life or you probably wouldn't be listening to this. We all reach a time in our life where we want to transition from pursuing success to pursuing significance, to leave our mark. To find something that actually feeds our soul, not just our bank account. And I think everybody goes through this no matter what their financial position is. Obviously, if you are more financially stable, you can many times give yourself grace and more space to be able to explore what it is that feeds your soul. But finances doesn't have to be the basis for being able to do that. We should all strive to find what feeds our soul. It'd be nice if we taught our children to do that from a young age instead of teaching them to pursue stuff, careers, money, position. I hope that the youth of tomorrow will spend more time in learning how to feed their souls, so they don't wait until they're at this time of quote unquote midlife crisis. Last week we talked about moving from crisis to creativity. So I was blessed this week to have a friend share a beautiful book with me, and I have been listening to that. And that book has really inspired me to present to you some of my thoughts today. You know, here it is, the holiday season, and everybody in the next week will be making New Year's resolutions or New Year's whatever. And some of those will, be the same old ones, resolutions around working out and losing weight and spending more time with your kids and being more focused on the things that are important. And then January 2nd hits and life hits us right between the eyes, and we get back on the treadmill and start running. So here's some thoughts that I garnered out of some of the things that I've been listening to lately. And I hope they'll inspire you as you're thinking about what you want 2018 to look like. So these are kind of some random thoughts. Gardening, like life, requires courage. We must be willing to cut back the old and sit with the bare branches, waiting on growth and trust that it will come. Now, to me, this speaks of letting go of things that no longer serve us. And sometimes that stuff, cleaning out your house and getting rid of stuff that is just a burden to clean and to keep and to maintain. Sometimes that's people who are toxic or in some way keep your soul from growing. Sometimes that's jobs. Sometimes it's location. What kind of things do you need to cut away this year? Are you willing to sit with the bare branches waiting on growth? Do you trust that growth is coming? Life sends you messages, and if you don't get the message, you'll get a lesson. And if you don't get the lesson, you'll get a problem. And if you don't deal with the problem, you'll get a full-blown crisis. Now, by the time most of us have reached the age that we're at, we know this. We know that we cannot put our head in the sand like an ostrich and ignore the problems, ignore the messages. But many times I think we don't even hear the message. We don't even see the message. I know this was a real big lesson for me. I had, as a young woman, in my teens, I had a very keen sense of intuition. I sensed things that were going to happen before they happened, and I would share them with my family. And sometimes I didn't have all the details. In fact, most of the time I did not have all the details. But I had enough of a sense of something either good or ominous that was getting ready to happen that I could share that with people. And I felt led to share it with people. And sometimes they thought I was a little kooky, and that was okay. I didn't care. It seemed important to share those things. Then life got busy, and I had kids, and I had a spouse, and I had problems, and I had life and work and all those things. And my brain was so preoccupied with all the things every day that my intuition just kind of shut off. It was like a switch. Or so I thought. But really, the switch had never been shut off. My acknowledgement of the messages had shut off. I quit listening to my intuition. And because of that, I missed the lesson. And because of that, I had problems. And because of that, sometimes I had crises. The thing that became very, very clear to me in going through the separation with my husband was that Spirit had been speaking to me very loudly, to the point of even yelling at me at times. And sometimes I would yell back. I know for weeks and months and even probably a couple of years, every day, every morning when I would drive to work, I just kept getting this voice in my head telling me a change was coming. And yet I did not want it. I ignored it. I argued with it. I screamed at it. I did not want the change. I argued with it to the point that I finally said, fine. If this is what's going to happen, then you need to show me, you need to prove to me that this is not just my crazy brain, my ego, the enemy trying to uproot and destroy what I wanted and what I loved. And as soon as I said those words, you have to prove it to me, you have to show me, the evidence was dropped in my lap of the change that was coming. And I knew that life would never be the same again. What messages are you ignoring? Do you need to get quiet and listen to the messages? Do you need to quit arguing with Spirit? Do you need to ask Spirit to give you proof? Because Spirit will. Spirit's funny that way. When you challenge Spirit, Spirit is up to the challenge every time without fail. Self-care isn't selfish in the truest sense of the word. Your needs are important. Many times we are trained, especially women, but I think a lot of men are trained this way as well. Men are trained to be fixers and women are trained to be caregivers. And because we're trained this way, many times, many of us forget to take care of ourselves. We put everybody and everything before ourselves. And when we try to put ourselves first, it feels selfish and it feels wrong and it feels arrogant. And in truth, God commands us to take care of ourselves. God commands us to love ourselves. God even speaks to the fact that we do love ourselves. And yet I think that many of us as children internalize something that keeps us from loving ourselves, that keeps us for accepting that we are divinely created, that God created us perfectly for this time and for this life. And that the things that we go through and the things that we internalize are the lessons that we are to learn. They are the things that we are to overcome. They are the things that in healing, they bring us back to God. In laying those things at God's feet, we draw closer to Him. Now, if you're listening and God is not your thing, that's okay. I don't care. I believe in God. I believe in God. I believe He's with me. I believe He's in me. I believe He's around me. I believe that His Spirit is in me and gives me strength every day. Sometimes my ego doesn't want to let my spirit, the Spirit of God that's in me, speak truth. And so my ego, which in my opinion is the devil, the enemy that the Bible speaks of, that comes to kill, steal, and destroy, because that's what our egos do. They tell us lies. They don't tell us, our egos don't tell us the truth of our soul. Our egos tell us the truth of the world. And that really isn't the truth. So back to self-care. If you don't take care of yourself, how in the world can you take care of another? I see this so many times as we get older. We have neglected ourselves for so long that we physically start falling apart. I'm seeing this in somebody that I love dearly. He was my first brother. And he's struggling right now because he ignored his own health for far too long. And though he is only 6 months older than me, he's struggling to stay alive. Self-care is absolutely important. You know, the world today is struggling, especially in our country, is struggling. You hear about it on the news with opioid addiction. This is a screaming symptom of people not practicing self-care. They are not healing from the hurts of their souls. And in ignoring those things, they are self-medicating with drugs that are destroying their physical body, that are destroying their minds. Self-care is so absolutely important. And self-care can be a simple thing. It can be simply taking a walk. It can be eating healthier. It can be doing yoga, which is one of the things I want to start to do. It can be not talking badly about yourself. It can be being grateful every day. Self-care can be setting boundaries. It can be taking a bubble bath. It can be using moisturizer on your skin. It can be choosing non-toxic products. Self-care is what makes you feel cared for. It's what gives you comfort. It's what makes you feel like you have made you a priority. So what are some things that you can do to improve your self-care? And in the process, improve your life. What is it that you have not been giving yourself permission to do? One of the things I love to do is get massages. And I have been so busy with work that I have not given myself permission to do that. And I miss it. And my body suffers because of it. Self-care is so very important. Setting boundaries is a sign of integrity, a sign of self-love. Self-love is honoring God. He gave you this body, this personality for this time, and you are told to honor and care for it. Sometimes setting boundaries is a hard thing to do. In the addiction world, they call it tough love. Sometimes. But just as you have boundaries on your property and you would not allow someone to move in and set shop in your front yard, you have to set boundaries in your own life. You cannot allow people to move in and set up shop and hurt you repeatedly. You have to set boundaries so that you feel safe and you feel comfortable. These are all lessons that I've learned. I'm just sharing things that I've learned. Some of these things are things that I needed to hear myself. All change begins with the truth. Speaking it and honoring it is the beginning of change. So I would challenge you today to sit down and write some things. Write about yourself. Write the truth. Get it on paper. Read it. Be honest with yourself. If there's changes you want to make in your life, the only way you can make change is to know where you are. You have to know where you're starting from before you can even begin the journey of getting to where you want to be. For years, I have put responsibility before desire. I have the strongest suck it up muscles on the planet, I swear. I have chosen others' needs and others' wants in order to obtain their approval. Rather than speaking my truth, speaking my pain, I have sucked it up. And now when I try to speak my truth and speak my pain, those around me that care are offended. And that saddens me. But I'm going to speak my truth anyway. Because I need to. My soul needs to. It has felt like I was a volcano waiting to erupt. Because I would keep things in for so long that they would just burst out of me because they could no longer be contained. It's easier to speak your truth than to control the volcano. I have traveled a lot, but now it feels weird to travel and enjoy being a tourist without my husband and family to share it with. This is something I'm working to overcome. There's something freeing about being able to choose what I want to do when I travel. Giving myself permission to have pleasure in what I'm doing without worrying about whether anybody else is enjoying it as well. I overbook myself sometimes, and this leaves me anxious and somewhat angry, obviously, at no one else but myself, but it feels like I'm angry at others. When I decided to take on doing this radio broadcast, it was before my mother passed. And the first episode was due shortly after she passed. That's why I did it on grief, because I really didn't know how to get through it and to actually put anything together without it being on where I was. And to be quite honest, it has felt burdensome to meet the deadlines. And sometimes I've even felt angry. And yet, I so wanted to do this. So I'm just going to power through it. I've got strong suck it up muscles. I'm going to power through it because it brings me joy. And that's part of self-care, is to find those things that bring you joy and to ignore the ego that's trying to be angry. But I also have to learn to not overbook myself. I have to learn that part of my self-care is to give myself time and space. Sometimes we live in denial through distraction. I think I did this for far too many years. If I was honest with myself, I think the distractions of life is what kept my marriage going. And I'm not saying that there weren't some really wonderful times. There were. I have great memories, and I can honestly say I loved with all my heart. But I think that I spent a lot of years in denial about what the truth was. And then I was angry that I had wasted so many years. And yet, the lessons I learned and the joy that I experienced and the experiences that I shared, I would not trade for anything. Pay attention to images that show up in your dreams or surroundings. They may be linked to the messages that you are supposed to be listening to. This is definitely one of the lessons that I have had to learn these last few years. I have lived my life caring for others before myself. I was groomed to be the caregiver at an early age, and I struggled to say no in fear of disappointing others or in fear that they will no longer like me. And yet, as I enter this time in life, I find I miss being needed, and I find I waver back and forth between wanting to be needed and wanting to be free. I struggle to find balance in so many areas of my life. I hate housework, but I envy order in others' homes. Maturity makes it easy to drop pretense. Yet I'm afraid to be real sometimes. I have no interest in minimizing myself for others to be comfortable, but it is a struggle to not minimize myself. Convention isn't always the easy path. There are some things in life worth surrendering for. Living authentically takes a lot of work. Sometimes it's really hard to identify what is authentic to you. We are so influenced by those around us and about life and just going through the motions that I think we lose our authentic self. And part of a midlife crisis, I think, is our soul calling us back to our authentic self. That's why I like to think of a midlife crisis as more of a midlife creativity time. It's the time to come back to your authentic self. Sometimes we have to give up something we want for something our soul needs. And when our soul need becomes so strong that we can no longer ignore it, sometimes we have to do the painful process of pruning. This is what I experienced. Isolation only makes things worse for me, and yet it feels safe and comfortable. I vacillate back and forth between wanting to be busy and going and going and going and just wanting to hibernate at home and not seeing anyone and just sitting here alone with my thoughts and with God. I have decided that it's time to get my need for connection met. I've decided that I want to live life, not conquer it. I've come to realize that debt is slavery. I am hungry for depth and space and new challenges. I love my stuff, but I feel the need to rid myself of the burden of it all. I want to travel to live the nomadic life, but the thought of being away from my family makes my heart hurt. I'm afraid to die alone. I want to make a difference in the lives of others, but my ego says, who the hell do you think you are? I long to have a solid, committed, romantic relationship with a man, but I don't trust myself to choose a man who is trustworthy of my heart. I basically do not trust men except as friends. I have some wonderful male friends, but they are kept at an arm's length to an extent. Gratitude changes everything. This is a lesson I have learned very strongly over the last couple of years, and I have spoken of it often. In fact, I'm part of a new book coming out. Well, it's not a new book. We had a book in 2017. I spoke of this before, and the new version is coming out soon, called Living Gratitude Daily, and it's a beautiful book. It's a devotional and a journal. It'll be on Amazon soon. I highly recommend it if you're on a personal growth journey yourself. We have a Facebook Live group called Living Gratitude Daily, and one of the authors speaks of the reading every day. So you can get the input three ways. You can listen, you can read, you can write. Those are all powerful ways. When you combine the three of them, it's a powerful way to make a significant shift in your life. So, with 2018 upon us, I decided I wanted to try to write down things that I want. You know, there Louise Hay and many others who speak of the law of attraction. One of the things they tell you to do is to write your desires down, to make boards that show the things that you want, to put your intention out there, and that when you put your intention out there, the universe responds. Now, there's some things I've put my intention out there for, and I have not seen the universe respond yet. And I know I hear other people talk about this, but sometimes when we put our intention out there, either we're not specific enough, or it doesn't come in the way that we want it to come. It comes, we just don't recognize it. So here are some of the things that I wrote down that I want for 2018. I don't want to just accomplish things. I want to feel. I want to feel comfortable in my body. I want to be connected. I want to travel. I want to experience beauty. I want to experience wall-rattling sex that feels like a spiritual experience again. I want to have someone to share my daily life with. I want to be creative more through photography and painting. I want to let go of the past. I want to laugh. I want spontaneity. I want to do yoga regularly. I want to release what is burdensome, whether that's stuff, people, or projects. I want to share a life. I want to smile. I want to laugh till I cry. I want to stand in wonder and in awe of God's beautiful creation. I want someone in my life that I can talk to for hours and it feels like minutes. I want to share deep spiritual conversations. I want to be connected. What is it that you want for 2018? What are the things that you want to change? How are you going to do self-care? What would bring you joy? What would make you laugh till you cried? What would make your life feel vibrant, full of color and joy? What would make you feel like you were growing again? What do you need to prune away? I hope you'll go to my Facebook page and leave me a message. Share with me where you are. Share with me what you hope your 2018 would be like. You can join me on my Facebook page, My Life Redesigned, and share your thoughts. I look forward to connecting with you. This is Vickie Washburn with A Boomer's Guide to a Vibrant Life. Thank you for tuning in.
Host of The Boomer's Guide to a Vibrant Life. Connect with Vickie at www.globalvoiceradio.com. Tune in next week for another edition of The Boomer's Guide to a Vibrant Life on Global Voice Radio, where your message and your voices are heard.